Hello, my future software architects and programmers. So today's going to be a very simple lesson. It's actually just going to be the anatomy of a class. This is actually chapter 4 on the object-oriented thought process, which is a great book so far. I'm actually learning a lot of things that kind of just flew over my head the first time that I've learned object-oriented programming. So let's get into it. Most of the things in here we're actually not going to cover in depth because we already have covered them in recent or past chapters. So I'm just going to look it over and then explain what we haven't learned. Okay, so attributes. Everybody knows what an attribute is by now. Everybody should know. And if you don't, then go ahead and look at, I think it's chapter 2, I believe. But anyways, an attribute actually represents the state of an object because they hold the information of that object. So for instance, the state, the count number, whatever it may be. Now you can use a private keyword, which signifies that basically that attribute, it's only accessible to that object. If you use a static keyword, that basically means that all the other objects which were instantiated from that class share the same value for that attribute. So it's basically sharing the allocated memory. So for instance, object 1, if it has an attribute of count, and it's going to be 0 as well as object 2. So basically they're going to share the same value for that attribute. If one of them changes, the other one changes as well. Constructors. Now we all know what constructors are, and if you don't, you should look at this last chapter when we talked about them in a deeper sense. A constructor is basically just a special method which basically runs as soon as the object is instantiated. It is usually used to actually to initialize the attributes. You could also throw methods in there as well. Okay, so now we're going to get into something that I don't think we have covered just yet, which is accessors, setters and getters. Now, these accessors are very important because they actually allow you to actually be able to filter out data with they actually allow you to it actually allows other objects to get private attributes from a certain class or certain object. The good thing about this is that it actually implements good data integrity, which basically means that you could actually use other built-in functions to manipulate the data before you actually store it. Getters is basically the opposite. Instead of setting it, you're actually getting the information. So it basically allows access to private attributes to other classes. Okay, so next we got public interface. A public interface, well, we should already know what it is. It's basically something that other objects can actually instantiate and call. This is where the private implementations happen, right? Last but not least, we got private implementation methods. This is basically where most of the things that make that class unique and all the functionality will be within private methods. And these private methods will be inside of public interfaces. They will be instantiated inside public interfaces. So that's it for now. Stay tuned.